Hello and welcome to another flying video with Fly Level 180. Today we are doing a very interesting topic. It's how to fly airport patterns in complex fuel-injected single-prop piston airplanes. We're flying the Beech Bonanza. This is the Carenado upgraded with the Reality Expansion Pack. It's a pretty good airplane. Had some issues. For some reason it's smoking right now. I have no reason why. There's nothing wrong with it. But anyway, it's a very good airplane. It's pretty close to reality, though it does have some issues. But you can look at my other videos if you're interested in that. So let's go ahead and jump into the topic. This is a very interesting topic that I apologize for not having a video out for a few weeks. I spent a lot of time lately doing reading. I've read Flying the Beech Bonanza, which is a great book. I've left a link in the show description. I've read Pelican's Perch, which is a series of articles online written by John Deacon that's wonderful, and I strongly recommend if you own a Bonanza or are interested in Bonanzas, buy the Flying the Beech Bonanza book. And if you're interested in flying in general and safety and how to manage an engine, read Pelican's Perch. It's great. So let's talk a little bit about what we're going to do today. I brought up some notes here. So the key goals when we're flying this pattern, the first one is obvious, and it's fly safely. And, you're thinking, oh, that's stupid. It's obvious that we're going to try to fly safely. Well, in conjunction with the second point, which is protect the engine's long-term health, there's some wiggle room here as to what the right choice is. And the engine, so you've got a block of aluminum that gets very hot. Our goal is to keep the cylinder head temperatures down as much as possible. And to do that, there's some techniques you do. If you go by the book and you fly the POH, Bonanza POH's, what it tells you to do, it's not necessarily the best choice for the long-term health of the engine. And we're going to talk about that. So what we're doing is, in this flight, I'm going to fly the Pelican Perch's recommendations, John Deacon's recommendations on how to fly the airplane. And there's some things that we can't do 100% because of the limitations of REP, but most of it is pretty much right by the book by Pelican's Perch. So you're going to see that. So the third thing is we want to be a good neighbor, and that's why I chose this airport. This airport, as you can see, is right by Chicago, and this airport doesn't exist anymore. Now it's now it's grass, and the reason. Let me jump you back. So if you look out the window, we're right next to Chicago. This is a super convenient airport, not very big, but it's now gone because of noise issues. There were so many complaints about this airport that it was shut down, and now it's gone. And they put it in X-Plane, they put it in FSX as a bit of a joke or something, but this is gone. So I live next to an airport. It's extremely annoying to have airplanes flying over that are super loud, and they'll fly over at max RPM. And it's absolutely disruptive. And even though I like airplanes, I really don't like it. And you can see why people complain about noise, because it's super common that there are people flying over in Piaggio Avantis and such forth, and basically just you can hear it. I had airplanes flying over last night at 3 a.m. waking me up, and it's extremely annoying. So we're going to try to keep the noise down, and I'm going to show you how to do that, how they suggest doing that in Pelican's Perch. So let's get everything set up here. We have a crosswind at 080, and I've marked that with by turning this in this direction, and then I have my heading set here. And it's very important to set these as you're flying these patterns, so you have a reference point of where the wind is and where the runway heading is, and I'll show you that as we fly through. We have everything set up. We have our cowl flaps open to keep the CHTs down. We have our flaps up, standard stuff. Let's go ahead and pop our landing lights on. And generally, I think we're good to go. So we're going to do 2 laps. We're going to do the first lap where I'm going to stop at every point of interest. I'm going to talk to you about what I'm doing. We're going to do the complete lap. We're going to touch and go, and then we're going to do it again to put it all together. And hopefully I don't make a hash of this. So let's go ahead and get going. We're going to do our quick run up. So we're going to get up to around 1700. We're going to cycle the prop twice. Any more than that is a waste. We're going to check to make sure our fuel flow is working. It is. And we would be doing this key doesn't work well in this freaking airplane. It's a limitation of Carenado or REP, but we're going to pretend that we tested the mags. So let's go ahead and get going. So basically, let's go ahead and hit it. So the goal here, we're going to go full throttle, full mixture, full prop RPM. And the reason we do that, so let's just talk quickly. Let's go ahead and get going, and then we'll talk about it when we get going. We want to get, once we get our power up, we don't want to sit there and run it up. We want to get that power going as fast as possible. So RPM, fuel flow, manifold pressure, oil pressure, and EGT all looks good. We're looking for 67 knots to rotate, and there we are. We're rotating. And let's pause for a second. I got my nose up a little bit here, but we'll fix that in a second. That's the problem with looking at the keyboard while you're flying. So why are we at full throttle, full fuel flow, full manifold pressure? Now, you think that would be something that would cause the engine to heat up, and our goal is to keep our temperatures down. Well, what's happening here is we're dumping, there's extra fuel being dumped into the fuel system, more than we actually need to burn in order to keep the temperatures down. So all this extra fuel keeps the cylinder head temperatures down. So if you back off on the throttle or you back off on the mixture, you're going to have a problem in terms of CHT. And people do it. They think, oh, I'll keep the temperature down by taking off at less than full power. Well, that actually increases your temperatures. So don't do it. So let's go ahead and continue. I need to get my nose down a little bit here. And there we go. And let's pause right here. So the next thing I'm going to do, and I'm sorry for the slightly sloppy takeoff here, is I'm going to go ahead, I've got usable runway left. Even if this were a long runway, I'm going to bring my gear up almost immediately. Yes, I know this is controversial. I know this is not what people typically do. The beach, flying the Beech Bonanza tells you to keep your gear down as long as you have usable runway left. But I am worried about the long-term health of this engine. And right now I'm at, 75 knots, and I'm not going to accelerate very fast if I have my gear down. So I'm going to get that gear up, and I'm going to try to get the acceleration going as much as possible. So let's go ahead and jump into that. And so gear is coming up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've got my hand on the gear. Gear is up and locked. Good. And we should get some nice acceleration here. Now let's talk about the next thing we're going to do. So I'm at 2700 RPM. 2700 RPM. This engine is screaming. You're pissing off people if you take off at 2700 RPM. Now I'm going to drop it to 2500 RPM. The rep is going to complain, oh, you're outside the limits. I think it's fine. There's the airplanes that are delivered to Germany, the Bonanzas, are limited at 2500. They have a prop speed limiter. All it does is it drops your max horsepower by about 15 horsepower, which is nothing. So basically, I'm doing this to keep the noise down, and I think every pilot should do this. Once you get up, unless it's strictly forbidden in the POH, you should do this. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm getting my RPM down to 2500, and then REP should start complaining. Now, let's talk a little bit. You saw the warning message come up there. So let's look at a couple things here. First of all, you'll note that I'm slightly right of the runway heading because I've got a 9-knot crosswind blowing from the right. So in order to stay on the runway heading, I've got to be right. And we're going to keep this in mind, where that wind is coming from. Now, second thing, I'm keeping my manifold pressure. I'm not going to climb out at less than full wide open throttle, WOT. I'm keeping it all the way up. And that's to keep the temperatures down. I want to keep that fuel flow going and hammering into the cylinders. I don't want to take and bring the power back to 2500 because that's going to result in higher CHTs. It's all about CHTs. So let's go ahead and keep going. So we took off from 500 feet AGL, and we are now almost at 300 feet. 500 feet MSL, we're going to almost 300 feet AGL. We are going to stay on this heading until we hit about 700 feet. So I've got my hand on the throttle, and I bumped the, and now what I'm doing here is I'm pitching. I'm not pitching up with the standard 10 degrees. I'm pitching up to get my airspeed up. I'm trying to get up to 120 knots. So why 120 knots? 96 knots is VY in this airplane, the best rate of climb. Well, 96 knots is great, but I'm cranking out a ton of heat right now. So I'm looking for 120 knots. I'm going to slow down my speed. I don't have many obstacles. And I'm going to slow down my rate of climb, but in what I'm getting back is I'm getting lower cylinder head temperatures because I'm getting a lot more airflow over that engine, which is the best way to cool it down. Now, where does that work from a safety perspective? Well, you want to be up as high as possible, you know, so if you have an engine failure, you can climb back. But, you know, when you're at 96 knots and you have an engine failure, you have a high potential of stalling out. I'm a lot better off at 120 knots. Now, I might, if it's sort of a trade-off, and it's something you need to weigh, but I think it makes a lot more sense. You're much less likely to get an engine failure if you're running at 350 CHT versus 420 over the long term, because that 420 is damaging the engine, okay? The 350 keeps it cool. So I'm taking a little bit more risk on every takeoff in exchange for keeping my long-term risk of keeping the engine in good shape. That's my trade-off, is I'm looking for the long term, trying to keep the engine healthy. So, okay, so we are now at 700 feet AGL. So I am now approaching pattern altitude, which is 1,000 feet. I'm going to do a right pattern here, because if you look to the left, you know, you're going to be flying into some buildings here. So there's no published information on this airport, obviously, but we're going to fly a right pattern. So let's go ahead and make our call outs, and we are going to start our right turn. So our right turn starts at 700. So first thing, turn back is available. We're going to start our, so if we lost an engine, we could turn back here. Now, second thing I'm going to say is, let's go ahead and make our radio call. Meig's traffic, Bonanza 232 Golf Mike is turning right crosswind for runway 36, touch and go, Meig's. Okay, so let's go ahead and straighten things out. So I'm going to pause it again here. A lot going on. Now this airplane is so fast, you get up pretty fast, pretty high, and you got to be on your game. Now, let's look at the heading indicator. We're almost to our heading. We've got a direct into our face crosswind, headwind of 9 knots now. So we need to make this leg a little bit longer in order to get far enough out from the airport that when we turn back 180 degrees when we're doing our base, that we actually don't blast past the airport, okay? So just something to keep in mind there. Now, I'm actually now at slightly over pattern altitude. This is what happens when I talk. So we need to get our nose down and get our power down. So let's go ahead and do that. So nose down, and I'm bringing my manifold pressure down, and I'm bringing my RPMs down. Now, there's no reason I need to keep things at 2,500 RPM. I'm just going to bring it to about 2,200, and here we go. Now, something else I want to talk about. If you're getting pretty good at practicing in the simulator, there's something I strongly recommend you do, and it really will show you a high level of difficulty, is go and fly at night. Go and fly patterns at night, and do it in an airport without many light references. Go try Kaluapapa in Molokai, Hawaii. It's great because you take off over the ocean. You can do it here. You've got no, if it were night, you'd have no references. I strongly recommend it. It's really challenging, and it will show you how hard it is. And you're going to learn how important it is to know exactly, to be able to use these instruments in the cockpit. You know, you want to have your eyes out, but it's also important to know what your you look at the attitude indicator and know exactly where you are. So just a little suggestion there. So here we go. We are at 1600 inches, 16 inches of map and 2200 RPM. We're going to go ahead and lean a little bit. Since we're at so low power, we can do that. Let's go ahead and start our right downwind. Meig's traffic, Bonanza 2 Golf Mike is entering a right downwind for runway 36, touch and go, Meig's. So there we go, we're right at pattern altitude. Now, let's stop here and I'll tell you something else. So, we have a left crosswind of 9 knots, so the wind's coming from there. I can see that here. I stopped my turn slightly left, so the perfect course to be parallel to the runway is right here, but I'm nosing into the wind just to keep my pattern rectangular or square or whatever you want to call it. Okay, so that's sort of what's going on there, and it's just super useful to keep that to keep those pointers in. So let's look at where we are. We're a little bit far out, so we're going to nose in a little bit. You know, it's funny, in real life, people fly the patterns in a pretty crazy way. There's a lot of sloppiness out there. So, you know, we can be a little sloppy. I like to be as perfect as possible, but it's not, you don't have to be completely perfect. So what we're gunning for here is we're trying to keep our altitude as perfect. We're at 115 knots, which is great. Now, something else that's important. When you're flying a pattern, we're not flying a jet. We're not trying to get 4 miles from the runway, on the runway heading, and try to fly a perfectly stabilized approach. We're not a jet. We have an engine that is less reliable than the turboprop engine or a turbojet engine. These pistons, you know, they do fail. And what we want to do is we want to be close enough at all times that if we have a failure, we can actually get there. So right now I could drop flaps and I could drop gear, but I don't want to do that. I want to keep my speed up, keep my energy up, so if I do lose an engine, that I can actually get back to the runway and make a safe landing. And so I'm going to try to make a close short final and try to keep things tight. And so if we do have any problems, we're okay. So, okay, let's see how we're doing. So we're looking to, across from the numbers, we're going to go ahead and drop our gear. And our speed is good, we are acceptable. There we go, let's go ahead and do it. Okay, nose is going to start coming down. Hand is on the gear handle, very important. And we have 3 green, we're good to go. And we're going to go ahead and start pitching for 500 knots, 500 feet per minute of descent. And there's 900 feet. I'm going to slide a little bit left here so we have a little bit room for our base. And there's 800 feet. Meig's traffic, Bonanza 2 Golf Mike is turning right base for runway 36, touch and go, Meig's. So trying to keep my nose turning, stay coordinated. 500 feet. Now, if you look at the wind indicator, we have a tailwind here, and it's a pretty strong tailwind, 9 knots. So this leg is going to be very quick, so we got to stay on our game here. Let's see, where is the airport? Okay. Let's get our nose in a little bit so we can see. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and drop my flaps. Now, another comment here. I could drop my flaps in a turn, but that's probably not a very good idea. I want to be stable so I don't end up in a stall or a spin dropping my flaps. So I'm basically doing it in the base leg while I'm actually in a stable, flat, wings level attitude, okay? So there's the big, okay, so flaps are down, flaps are down. So I'm only landing with 1 notch of flaps here. let's go ahead and start our final. Meig's Traffic Bonanza 2 Golf Mike is turning final for runway 36, touch and go Meig's. And just try to ease it in. Now, I don't see any real reason to fly, unless you're flying in a super short runway, any reason to fly at more than 1 notch of flaps in this airplane, especially when you have a crosswind. The crosswind is a bit of a challenge here in the REP version. So looking pretty good. So I'm going to start bringing my power down now. So you might say, oh, you're going to get shock cooling. I'm not so sure, and the experts, the modern day experts, aren't so worried about shock cooling. I don't think we're going to have any issues here, and it's shock cooling from dropping pretty far out. You know, you shouldn't be descending from 10,000 feet with less than 1,500 RPM, but generally I think we're good. So here we go. Trying to get down to 70 knots over the number. Now you notice I've got a big crab going because I've got so much crosswind. And hopefully I don't hash this up too bad, because this airplane is a bit challenging in a crosswind. Okay. As you can see, it's like landing on an aircraft carrier. There's not much airfield here. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and kick that nose over. Okay, not bad. So we're going mixture up, prop up, power up, and I'm not raising my flaps. I'm just going to go ahead and take off with my flaps down, and I'll bring them up as soon as I can. Okay, let's go ahead and bring our gear up, bring our flaps up, and we now have gear up. Let's go ahead and look for 2,500 RPM, and REP is going to start bitching at us, but that's okay. I don't care what they say. So here we go. We're now at 300 feet. 400 feet AGL. 500 feet AGL. Let's take a peek out. Chicago's a great city. You should visit it. Not the greatest weather. Need to pitch my nose down a little bit to get some more speed in here. 600 feet AGL. 700 feet AGL. Now turnback is available. Meig's Traffic Bonanza 2 Golf Mike is turning right crosswind, runway 36, full stop, Meig's. And there we go, we're at 900 feet. Let's go ahead and start bringing our power back. Now we're at pattern altitude. And let's go ahead and bring our RPMs back. And a little bit high, not too bad. And we have a headwind, so we are going to try to keep things a little bit longer. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And turn our downwind. And since we have a crosswind, we are going to try to stop a little short. Meig's Traffic Bonanza 2 Golf Mike is on a right downwind for runway 36 for a full stop landing, Meig's. Okay, there we go. Our distance looks pretty sharp. Power is good. RPM is back. We're going to bring our we're going to lean pretty aggressively our mixture. Now the airplane doesn't handle it super well, so I'm not going to lean too much. It doesn't matter, you know, we're running at peak power, as you can see at the top of the screen, but it doesn't really matter because my power is so low right now. It doesn't really matter that much because you know, it's really about keeping your CHTs down. Okay, we are now at gear, or where we want to drop our gear. Okay, starting our nose down. That's 200, approaching 200 feet. 250 feet. Let's go ahead and start our base. Meig's traffic, Bonanza 2 Golf Mike, turning right base, runway 36 for a full stop, Meig's. Okay. And we have a tailwind here, so we gotta be quick. Let's go ahead and drop our flaps now that we're wings level. And flaps didn't go down, let's try again. Okay, flaps are down. Let's do our gumps. So gas, undercarriage is down and locked. Mixture is lean. Prop is 2200. If we do a grow around, we're going to have to do mixture, then prop, then flaps. Okay, let's go ahead and start our final. And flaps are 1. We're going to leave it there. And switches are good. Meig's traffic, Bonanza 2 Golf Mike, entering final, runway 36, touch and go, Meig's. And we're a little low here, so we're just going to go ahead and dump some power. Now I could start my slip from out here, but I don't really need to do that. Okay. Gears down. Eyes up towards the end of the runway. Keep my nose up to decelerate a bit. Okay. Not the finest landing ever, but acceptable. I always find it harder to land when I'm on video. Okay. So that's how it's done. I hope you found that interesting. I think there's probably some controversial stuff in that video, some techniques that a lot of you are going to disagree with. Go ahead and throw your comments in there. I strongly recommend go read those Deacon articles. I'm going to put the link to my favorite article, which is called Putting It All Together. I strongly recommend that you check that out. So anyway, let me know your comments. Please try to keep them somewhat positive, and I'll see you in the next video.